The Mistborn trilogy. Which one is the best one? I recently did a Mistborn The Final Empire book review on this channel and it tanked big time. So I'm gonna try something a little different with the last two books. That way I can also keep living in denial about the quality of my previous review. Because obviously it's because it was a bad topic, not because the video was shit. A lot of people would say that The Final Empire, the first book, is their favorite of the bunch. But as you've probably seen, hopefully maybe not, from my first review, I think it has some faults. I think book 2 is the best one. I think The Well of Ascension is the most godly, most beautiful, the book where the Mistborn trilogy truly achieves its greatness. Now don't discard me just yet. I know a lot of people might be like, what did he just say? Did he just say he liked the second book? What? That's unacceptable. Now listen here, my friend. Just because you don't understand the gloriousness of true storytelling doesn't mean you have to blame me for it. I know the truth. I know The Well of Ascension is the best one. Well of Ascension, unite! Join me! Why do I think The Well of Ascension is the best of the bunch, you ask? Well, there are a lot of different reasons. First off, I think the heist genre is kind of lost in the first book, and the only book where that genre is really in play, and I think it kind of drops some of the character writing for the secondary characters on the floor. It really shows the greatest detail for Kelsier and Vin. Kelsier more so as a plot driver and Vin as the main character with the most depth. Obviously, there is a bit of depth to be found within both Kelsier and Sazed, but within the rest of the characters, they're pretty much just 2D caricatures to kind of create this crew kind of vibe. Obviously, if you disagree, that might be also part of the reason why the video did badly, and you know, we can agree to disagree. And let's go on to the second book. So the second book, the one that I love, I'll just pull it out because it deserves it, is The Well of Ascension. The Well of Ascension is basically the war arc of this book. Obviously there's a war in pretty much all of the books, but this is like a book that's built up around a huge siege between 3 armies on the Luthadel gates. I think this is a great premise. It builds suspense all throughout the story, and it gives you a promise of a great battle at the end, which is also a very good page turner for this book. Now, the thing that most people gripe about with this book is that it's boring. Now, I cannot say a lot about that because I didn't find it boring. I don't know why a lot of people find this boring. I thought it was great. A lot of people find Vin annoying though, and I can kind of relate to this, especially in this book. This is probably the book where I found Vin the most annoying at my first read through, but I would like to say, in hindsight, this is the book where I appreciate her character arc the most. It is very realistic, I'd say, although I've never been a female girl teenager. I don't know if I even have any credit to that, but it just feels realistic. She feels like an actual girl. Her thought process is very logical, and she has doubts. She's a really well-written character. I think her character arc is great. Her split between Elend and Sane in her 2 different choices that she can make throughout the story, and then, you know, Tindwyl, we have the character of Tindwyl that kind of introduces her to a 3rd alternate choice, which is eventually the one that she chooses, and then you have these 2 characters that kind of manifest themselves as her 2 choices, and I think it's a very logical, a very fitting for her age kind of character development. I also quite like the word pun with Sane, because he is sane, not insane, which is revealed when he dies. That's why his name is Sane. Oh. Another thing is I really loved Elend in this book. His character arc was almost on par with Vin's, I'd say. I really loved it. I really appreciated the moment where he killed that one Colossus because he didn't want to return empty-handed. It really illustrated the change that he'd gone throughout the book, and it showed the confidence that he'd gained, and really like was a momentary, oh shit, he's really changed kind of moment for his character. And I think it was really well done, and I think he changes into a very interesting character by the end of all this. And I think that's really the name of the game. The character work in this book is far beyond, in my opinion, what happened in book 1. And if you found it boring, I ask you, how? how could the Straventure, the Ashweather set, who's also a very interesting character by the way, and the Colossus armies all standing by the gates of Luthadel, and the political intrigue that then proceeds to take place all throughout the story. I think it was exciting all throughout, especially with the climax. The climax of this book was actually the best of them all, in my opinion. I really loved the twist. I really loved the action finale. The turns felt earned, though still unpredictable. And the relationship between Tensoon and Vin was also really well developed. It's really just, in my opinion, by far the best of the books. Now why then, you might ask, did you not proceed to pick The Hero of Ages as your favorite book? We've heard why you dislike the first book, whatever, okay. But The Hero of Ages also has some really great character development, and that is true. We have possibly one of the best character arcs in the entirety of the trilogy with Sazed after his loss of Tindral in book 2. We also have Spook, who also proceeds to become even more interesting than he already was in book 2 and becomes a centered character with his Survivor of the Flames story arc. But then we have the fact that they leave Luthadel. I've actually heard somewhere that Brandon Sanderson planned to have them more on Luthadel throughout the entirety of the story. I'm not sure this is true, but I can feel the ramifications of that. In book 3, they aren't in Luthadel for most of the book, and that would be fine if the rest of the world had the same development that Luthadel had. But that isn't the case. Both book 1 and 2 spent time almost entirely in Luthadel, but this book spends time in very many different cities and many different locations throughout the world that is not fleshed out enough to feel nearly as interesting as Luthadel was throughout the first 2 books. Elendil was amazing. I think the character arcs in many ways almost rival what we saw in book 2. The only issue is Vin's character arc wasn't nearly as interesting, if she even really had one. I mean, she was still a very interesting character. She was within character. She had all the development she'd received throughout the 2 other books. She just didn't really change much throughout this book. Then I also think the ending was a bit underwhelming for me. It wasn't bad by any means, but I think the change that happened with Vin's power and what happened with her character was disappointing. I didn't like what happened with her godly powers and then the fact that she became preservation. And I also felt like the story just left a lot unresolved. We never find out what's going on with Marsh. We don't really have a entirely finished character arc with him. I'd say it was kind of set up to be like the fact that he kills himself in the end to save whoever he's about to hurt. But that turned out to not be the case, which in itself could also kind of be a character arc, but I found that pretty underwhelming. Then we have Sazed, who has a great character arc throughout the story. Yes, very well done, but I think the twist with him in the end was kind of just mashed in there. I'm not saying Brandon Sanderson didn't plan for this. He could have easily done that, but I didn't feel like it was earned enough. I didn't feel like it was a satisfying twist for me. I've heard a lot of people saying they really like that twist, but to me, it kind of felt like, oh, okay, you're reaching a bit to make this fit the Hero of Ages prophecy. But in the end, to rank them off, I'd say the best, book 2, the next best, book 3, and the worst of them, book 1. So almost completely in the opposite direction of what is the most accepted, I guess, opinion on this. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed my video. Please go watch 2 of my other videos if you've got the time, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.